What's up, everybody? My name is Shannon, and I am still waiting for my Satyr, and today we are talking about Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Ngan. Okay, so I really do not understand the hype with this book. I was really excited going into it. So many people love this book. So many people say that this is like the height of YA fantasy and romance and all of this kind of stuff, and I truly do not understand that. To start off, I listened to this book on audiobook, and the very first thing I heard was warning for sexual abuse. And I was like, okay, I'm a little bit worried. Sometimes though, like you tag just in case, you could be triggered, like just for little things. Like I read a lot of fan fiction, a lot of times people will tag things just in case, even if it might not be triggering, but they don't want to, upset anybody just off the gate. But I've never read a book that immediately had that. Like I have read books about sexual assault and they still didn't have like warnings for graphic depiction of violence or like any of that kind of stuff. So that worried me. But then the very first section is a foreword by James Patterson, because this is one of like the books that he is presenting, and he was talking about how he read this and he felt like this story was just so important to share and it was so amazing and that this author did such a beautiful job creating this world. And I was like, wow, that sounds awesome. But then it quickly went downhill from there. So Girls of Paper and Fire is set in this fantasy world. We've got people, which like regular humans, those are called paper caste. And then we have two types of demons. We have moon caste, which are like the elite, and steel caste, which are below that. What's the difference between them? I honestly have no idea. I'm sure the book said it, but I have no idea what the difference between these two demons are, other than that moon is the best one. They all have like animal like traits, like they're fox people or bull people or whatever. I think maybe Mooncast is more animal. I have no idea. So that was already something that I was like really struggling to keep up with throughout this book. But the premise of this book is that we have this really cruel demon king who always has 8 paper cast concubines, and our main character, Lay, is chosen, but she's actually the 9th girl that's chosen. So that's a little bit weird already. And she has these golden eyes, so she's very striking, and it was something that the king was just taken with and he had to have her. And I kept thinking that was going to come back around. Never does. Doesn't matter. Lay is probably one of the most boring people in this entire book. I really don't understand why she was the main character, because she doesn't really have anything going for her. I feel like she gets really angry at the system and all of this, and she wants to break out and she wants to make a difference, and that's interesting, but there's nothing really going on for her other than that she's, thrust into this beautiful world where now there's all these pretty dresses. Oh, but she's a concubine and the king is cruel, and she starts to fall in love with somebody that she's not supposed to and all that kind of stuff. So it is your typical YA story, and there's just nothing going for it. Except that the love interest, Ren, one of her fellow concubines, was like this amazingly cool character who has a killer backstory. I loved her. I wanted more of her. I don't understand why the book wasn't told from her perspective. That's something I know it's out of my control. This is the way that the book was written, but it just frustrates me that we didn't get it from her perspective, because she was so much cooler and Lay just had nothing going on for her. So that was very frustrating. On top of that, we just didn't have a whole lot of world building either. Like we had this really beautiful Asian inspired setting, and like you could tell that like the author really had like a lot of this amazing imagery going on. But I had no clear idea of what the world was, where things were, how things worked, any of that kind of stuff. Like I said, I didn't really even understand the difference between the demons, and then obviously humans are going to be on the bottom, but it just wasn't really making a whole lot of sense. I'm wondering if that was going to be introduced in other books down the line. Like this one was just to introduce you to the characters and the romance, all that kind of stuff, and then we'd get more of the politics and the world building later. But the fact that it was even sprinkled into this book at all just kind of made it a little bit more frustrating again. And for the longest time, I couldn't decide how I felt about this book. It took me until I got about 50% of the way through when I decided I really didn't like it. And that was just because it's frustrating, the main character's boring, and above all, it's very dark. If you are triggered at all by sexual assault or harassment or any of that, do not pick up this book. Just do not do it. Yes, there is a warning in the front of it, and I'm very glad that there is, but it's too much, because, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, so I guess here's this little spoiler, but the king sexually assaults Lay twice. once I kind of understand, because that is just the nature of the story. It's dark, whatever. Twice, and the second time being even more graphic, is too much, and that really, really bothered me, and I just couldn't believe that the author went there. And then it made me upset because we just had James Patterson praising this book and saying how amazing it was, and there was nothing to be gained from these two graphic depictions of sexual violence. There was nothing to be gained from the story, and that just made me very, very angry. I'm sorry if I'm very passionate and riled up about this, but I do not understand the hype. I do not understand everybody saying that you have to read this book and that it's got amazing romance and any of this kind of stuff. I just don't get it. So I would not recommend this book at all. I am giving this book a D+, just because the love interest, like I said, she was a really, really interesting character. There is something there. There is a story here, but it got buried because the main character isn't Ren, it's Lei, and it got buried because we're focusing on this romance, but it's really not anything new other than the fact that it's two girls instead of a girl and a guy. Like, that was the only reason that it was different from any other YA. So above all, don't understand the hype, don't really care to see where the story is going next. Do not recommend, especially if you are triggered at all by sexual assault. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you can talk books with me every week. That is everything got for today, and I will see you guys next time.